Meyers, Superintendent of Gallia County Local Schools. Join us this month for our rendition of School Pride Countywide, featuring Brandon Mitchem, the principal at Addaville Elementary School. We're looking forward to this broadcast. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jude Meyers, Superintendent of Gallia County Local Schools. I'd like to welcome you to the February rendition of School Pride Countywide, featuring Gallia County Local Schools. Again, as Superintendent of the schools, I would like to reach out and personally thank the University of Rio Grande for their cooperation, our opportunity to come into the TV studios and tell our story. I also want to talk a little bit about our partnership with Rio Grande, where we currently are renting space from them at Allen Hall, where we're running 3 alternative programs of our own, both with our Boys-Girls Center, also with our alternative school, and with our digital academy. So we have a great partnership with the University of Rio Grande, whether it be the academic component, whether it be some of the things we do with teacher education. Lately I've been privileged to give the opportunity to come into some of the instructors' classroom and talk to students and speak with them about what schools are looking for when they interview potential candidates. So again, my thanks goes out to the University of Rio Grande, and we do appreciate that partnership and collaboration with them. As you know, Gallia County Local Schools encompasses most of Gallia County. We're made up of 7 buildings: Addaville Elementary, Hannon Trace Elementary, Vinton Elementary, and Southwestern Elementary. We have River Valley Middle School, River Valley High School, and also South Gallia, both middle school, high school combined. We offer a variety of programs within our district. We value the arts, we value athletics, we value our bands and choirs, and we value our rigor and gifted and talented programs. And I think the thing that, again, we want to tell our story, we have a lot of different opportunities for our kids, whether it be Beta Club, whether it be our extracurricular activities, whether it be History Day. We do that, and it's at no cost to the kids. We do not charge activity fees, as many districts do, to participate in these things, because we believe that our kids participating in those activities help with a well-rounded education. So we're very grateful of the support of our Board of Education, and very thankful to our buildings who always step to the plate and work with our kids to provide them opportunities both inside and outside of the classroom, because as we know, we don't live our lives in a bubble, that we need to be experienced in working with other people and building those relationships with those around us. So welcome to our show today. Today's guest is somebody that I met a few years ago. His name is Brandon Mitchem. I initially met him in an interview process, and I remember, and he did not know this at the time, but I remember saying to the person I was interviewing with that he's going to work for us, and it's probably going to be sooner than later. Brandon is just an outstanding individual, high character, hard work ethic, and what happened a few years ago when we made some transitions in our district, we had an opening at Addaville Elementary, and we basically interviewed one person. I said, I know exactly who we're going to put into Addaville. He is a perfect fit, has the right temperament. And here's an amazing thing about Brandon. If you walk into his building, I have yet to see him encounter a kid in the hallway, and he's got well over 300 kids that he didn't know their name. And he'll say, whatever the kid's name, how are you today? And hi, Mr. Mitchum. And so that's always impressed me, that how he has had this ability to build relationships with his students, and they all know him by name. But what I'd like Brandon to do is tell a little bit about himself. He's got a wonderful family, and you know, it's kind of a family affair down there, so to speak. And talk a little bit about your career. How did you get to Addaville Elementary, your background in education, anything you want to share on a personal level, and also, obviously, we're going to talk about Addaville today.
All right, Jude, I appreciate the introduction there. I graduated from River Valley High School, Gallia County Local Schools, my whole life. I went to the University of Rio Grande for my undergraduate degree in science and social studies, junior high education. I taught for 7 years at Oak Hill in Jackson County. before I interviewed, like Mr. Meyers said, for the junior high principal spot. I really had a desire to come back to Gallia County Local Schools and serve and help our students be successful. So after I taught at Oak Hill, I went and got my master's degree from Ohio University in administration. After 2 years of teaching after that, like Mr. Meyers said, I interviewed for the junior high job, and then the following year, about 10 days before school started, actually, I received a phone call and was excited for the opportunity to work at Addaville and work back in the Gallia County Local Schools. I do have a family, like Mr. Meyers said. I've got 3 children, 1 more on the way. 2 of my children attend Addaville. I've got a 3rd grader and a kindergartner. And my wife is actually a teacher in the 3rd grade at Addaville as well. Jude was bragging there about me knowing all the kids. I have mastered the art of saying, "Hey, you," when I don't recognize the kids. So I don't know them all, but it's a work in progress.
Well, I can personally witness to the fact that I have yet to see one that you didn't know their name, and I've always been impressed with your interaction with your kids and your staff. And I think the interesting part of your story that you shared, and I forgot about that, we hired Brandon 10 days before school was going to start. We said, "Oh, by the way, you're going to be principal at Addaville, and you're going to start now." And it's like, okay, now what do I do? And it's like, we'll get you through it. And Brandon has been just a blessing. We've got a great working relationship. He does a great job of communicating at the building level and at the district level. And I've seen him grow as an administrator. He's getting a lot more comfortable in those shoes, which is tough when you start as a new administrator.
Absolutely.
But I think he's now settled in and does a tremendous job running that building. And speaking of that building, let's talk a little bit about Addaville. And let's start about the building itself. Addaville's in a unique location. We call it the flash flood region of Gallia County. So not only your responsibility as a building principal, but you're spending some time out on the roads as well when it starts to rain, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's also different than the other buildings. We call it our Florida building because it's more set up like an octopus than it is like a traditional brick and mortar building it up and things. So, but tell me a little bit about, you know, your daily routine, and then when it rains and weather and the roads and things.
Yeah. Addaville is an interesting building. We're, I believe, 60 years old this year. So we've got some age, but it's a well-maintained building. And like Jude described it, it's kind of a Florida building. Walls of windows all over the building. Makes it interesting heating and cooling for sure. But it's still in good shape, and we love our little old building there. And as he was describing the flooding, Addaville has basically one way in and one way out. So when we do have a lot of rain, I do have to go out and drive and check the roads 3-4 times a day just to gauge and see where we're at. We have flash flooding, and then when the river backs up, we're close enough to Route 7 in the river that we have to worry about that as well.
So he's got a unique perspective in his job that maybe not other buildings would experience at the time. And because we're so spread out as a county, each building has its unique circumstances. And, you know, oftentimes, like people in the South are scratching their heads saying, why are we on delay? It may be snowing in one part of the county and it may not be in another part of the county. So I know the geography sometimes presents some challenges to us. So talking about your building, Brandon, I think one of the things that as a district, and I know you as a building principal are most proud of, Addaville Elementary was selected by State Support Team State of Ohio to serve as a regional coordinator of positive behavior supports. And can you talk about the team that you put together, the honors that they've received and recognition statewide? I know they were recognized in Columbus. And what in the heck is positive behavior supports?
We'll start first with what is positive behavior supports. And I could give you the long, dry explanation and a definition. But basically it's noticing these positive behaviors that our kids are displaying and accentuating them and really bragging those behaviors up and not focusing so much on the negative behaviors. It's really helping to change the environment of the school building. As Jude was mentioning, our preschool team actually was selected to be a a state model for this team. There's one of 16. We're one of 16 schools in the entire state of Ohio we're selected to demonstrate PBIS and its effects in the preschool classroom. My PBIS team is my preschool teachers, Diana Bing and Sarah Blankenship, and then our 2 classroom aides, Tricia Bear and Sabrina Childress. The last 2 years we've traveled to the Pbis Conference in Columbus, and this past year we were actually invited to sit in on a conference panel to discuss the positive effects that PBIS has had in our building. And we were one of, I believe, 5 schools in the entire state that was invited to participate in this panel discussion. Next year, our preschool program is supposed to have an entire half-hour to 40-minute session to talk about PBIS in our building. So one of the big things with PBIS, with our preschool, and it was hard for me and the teachers as well to focus, was pointing out the positives that our kids are doing and focus on them instead of the negatives. It's a mindset change, I think, for everybody, because those negatives are easy to see when the kid is up and being loud or not doing what he's supposed to do. That's easy to notice. It's harder to notice when Susie is sitting there quietly and doing her work. But that's kind of where we want to go with this, and what we focus on is really bragging up that kid and hoping through that positive interaction with them, the rest of the students will see that and want to change and do things in a more positive manner. So that was, like I said, that was the big difficulty with implementing PBIS. We went and we saw the results in our preschool. Our first year doing PBIS, our preschool students, and I'm talking 3, 4, 5 years old, these kids were doing the best in the hallways. They were walking in lines. They were helping each other out. They were quiet in the cafeteria. And we kind of looked around and talked and thought, well, what in the world? These are 4-year-olds, and our 5th graders aren't even doing this. So, what do we could tell right away that it's working, and we needed to start looking to implement it in our entire building, which we've started to do this year as well, K through 5. The first thing we did was implement a set of rules building-wide for all students to follow. So say, for instance, each teacher before had their own set of classroom rules. Now we've went to, there's one set of rules for each classroom pre-K through 5. That way the kids are all aware of what's expected. We also have school-wide rules now in the cafeteria, the hallways, the restrooms. And these rules are taught to our students by the teachers at the beginning of the year. That's something I asked them to do, and they would travel with their students to each of those settings and actually teach those rules of how what is expected in those settings.
And I think what's interesting, Brandon, we've had the opportunity, not everything is always great, and sometimes you have to have tough conversations with parents. But I've noticed now when we go into meetings, as opposed to saying, Mom and Dad or, Grandma, Grandpa, come on in, we need to talk about Johnny because Johnny did this and this and this wrong. We are now starting meetings by saying, listen, do you realize Johnny can do this, and do you realize Johnny can do that? And you see the reaction on the parents when you're in that meeting, and all of a sudden, instead of them thinking, oh boy, here we go, we're going to get lectured to, it's like, wow, they just said something positive about my student. It changes the entire climate, and I think that's the effect of positive behavior supports. It's not to say that everybody's going to be perfect and never make a mistake, but how do you address that issue and how do you handle that issue moving forward? It's just a different way of thinking in that whole process. And as a superintendent and as a representative of our board, and Gallia County is very proud with what Addaville's accomplished with that PBIS, and when they're recognized statewide. And notice that Brandon said schools, not districts. There's 600 and some public school districts in Ohio. When you talk about how many school buildings there are, to be recognized as one of 16 as a leader when it comes to implementing something, we're proud of that, and Brandon's taken the lead on that. Also want to talk about something that I've talked about frequently on this show, and that's Leader in Me. And Leader in Me is a district initiative, but it's basically the 7 habits as developed by Stephen Covey and how to change education with those 7 habits. But there's no question when you walk into Addaville Elementary, it has Leader in Me all over it. So if you want to talk a little bit about your Leader in Me initiative, who are your building leaders, and where you're at in that process.
Leader in Me is actually, it goes hand in hand with PBIS. First of all, the Leader in Me, it is a great success in our building starting out this year. And all the accolades to that should go to the teaching staff. They've been just absolutely amazing in rolling it out and working with the kids and teaching those habits to the kids. And like Mr. Meyers said, as soon as you walk into our building, you can see effects of the Leader in Me and PBIS. Our teachers, along with leading our students and teaching them how to take control and lead these situations, have just absolutely decorated our building in encouraging tones with each other. The first thing I notice when I walk in the building in our main hallway, we have a leadership tree that's posted in the hallway. It is probably 10 foot tall, but the leaves on it stretch probably 20 foot wide. And those leaves are made up of positive notes from one student to another or one student to a teacher. It's encouraging to see that in the building. It's really helping to change the climate of our building.
And I'll put you on the spot, and maybe you can't answer it,
Okay.
but do you have any stories, cute stories, that maybe where you encountered the Leader in Me, maybe in a situation on a playground or somewhere with a student that you actually saw them referring to one of the 7 habits?
I'm going to take an easy way out here, and I mentioned my children go to Addaville. My kindergarten student was talking to our 3rd grade student about homework and things like that, and my 3rd grade student didn't want to do those. And the kindergartner, who's 5 years old, asked her, "Are you being proactive?" So it's just safe to see, that this goes all the way from kindergarten, preschool, all the way up. It's really affecting not only the students at school, but it's affecting their home lives as well if they're using that language at home.
And I think it's interesting, Brandon, when you look at the demographics of Addaville, you have a very high percentage of high poverty kids. I believe 77% or greater are low-income students. We're pretty consistent with state average with student to teacher ratio, but we've also performed very well on the state report card down there. And if you want to comment a little bit about that, because there's been a huge correlation between kids in poverty not performing well on academic performance, but yet Addaville seems to excel with those types of kids. And as you know, we're on a federal foods program as well. So what do you think the secret is down there? Because Addaville's always been known as a very high-performing building.
Once again, Mr. Meyers, I'm going to go with my teachers in the building. They are, bar none, stack them up with any teachers anywhere in the state or in the nation for that matter. I think also a big factor is our parents really want our kids to succeed, and they're willing to be involved. We've got super parent organizations. Our PTO is absolutely top-notch. They want the best for our kids, and they're willing to put in the time and the effort to work and really help with that. But I absolutely believe, our teachers are wonderful. They're all experienced, really leaders in the field of education. They're super. We've
talked about one of your teachers with the Leader in Me, Melinda Norman. Melinda, if you're listening to this broadcast, I'm talking about you. And you do not want to play euchre with her because she is ruthless. But what a great lady, and I kind of joked and said if you could generate electricity off of her energy, we would be able to generate electricity for all of Gallia County, because she's that ball of energy that you see every day. But what a great person when it comes to, and you're going to have to make sure she talks to you about this broadcast. So again, I want to put out a public service announcement. Do not play euchre with Melinda Norman. But you mentioned your PTO. What a great group. And just recently, you started something new called All Pro Dads. We know we had a gentleman come to our board meeting and talk about the importance of fathers and men and male role models in the lives of our kids in the county. And I know you just kicked off a breakfast with that, and it was a huge success in attendance. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. The middle of February, I think around the 13th, we started our first All Pro Dads breakfast and message. And actually Darren Clark is the gentleman that's leading it with us. He approached us, like you said, at the board meeting, and he's worked hand in hand with us to get this program kicked off. And I mentioned the involvement of parents before. Most of the parental involvement in most schools is the moms, grandmas, they come in and get involved. So this was really important for us to get dads in the buildings and working and seeing what's going on. Our first breakfast, we had donuts and milk and juice. We actually had, I believe, around 65 fathers come into the school building. And they were there. With students, there was probably 120 or 130 people total for the breakfast and the message. And actually our gym at Addaville, the bleachers, was almost completely full with dads. And one of the neatest things that happened with this morning, the dads were given an opportunity to speak during the message, and they had to tell at least one thing they were proud about their student for. There was several dads that participated. There was even some tears happening in the room from some dads. And after we did that and we got a message, the dads walked their children to the classroom. So it was kind of neat to see, all these big dads walking their, kindergarten and preschool students hand in hand to their classrooms. It was a really great day, and glad to see so much involvement and see dads in the building for a change.
And typically, like you said, at the elementary level, it's usually your moms and grandmothers. And so for that opportunity to feature dads, which you happen to be a dad and had that opportunity to share that as not only as the building principal, but as a father as well. And this will be an ongoing program that we're actually going to do in all of our buildings. I know Edie Bostic at Han and Trace, they just had their first breakfast with their dads. So I know all of the elementary principals are coordinating with Darren to be able to implement this program, because we think it's important to get our parents involved with their kids' education, which is really, really neat to see. Let's talk a little bit about your staff. Let's talk about your leadership team for Leader and Me. Who's involved with that process? You've mentioned your Pbis team. Who's on your Leader and Me team? Our
leadership team, our Lighthouse coordinator, who is the leader of the whole program, as you mentioned earlier, is Melinda Norman. And she comes from a background of, I believe, 15 or 16 years in a drug prevention job working in Columbus. So this Leader and Me process, it goes right into her background, and that's why she's so excited about it, is to try to get our kids and maybe prevent them from taking some of those wrong steps in life. I've also have Diana Bing, who is one of our preschool teachers, is a team leader. Diana is very, very crafty and very energetic. I think she could go for days and days and days without stopping. Also have Jody Coleman, who's one of our third grade teachers, and Jody is like our school building mother. All the kids love her and just want to be around her. Also have Jessica Stevens as a leader. She's very crafty, very energetic as well, and she's one that helps develop our events in our building, which is perfect for her. Also have Deanna Carpenter. Deanna is a veteran teacher, super at her job, and she's very organized and just does an amazing job for us. We also have Cindy Wolf, who Cindy's been teaching for 30-some years, and she continues to do an awesome job. She's a leader on our team, and also Leanna Martin, another veteran teacher. And they all just work together. They have obviously strengths is why they were selected for the team, and their strengths, they feed off each other and just make an absolutely wonderful team to work with there.
And you also have Kelly Davis, who is our LPDC chair, which is our licensure vehicle for everybody from administration all the way through teachers. And Kelly does a phenomenal job. Enjoy the heck out of working with Kelly.
Absolutely.
Like I said, when I go out to Addaville, it's always an invitation in. Come on in my classroom. Let me show you what I'm doing with our kids. And just great interaction and a great climate in that building. And it's just absolutely a lot of fun. You mentioned your PTO, so maybe you can do a public service message about your PTO. When do they meet? How do you get involved? If you maybe could talk about that. Talk a little bit about your All-Pro Dads. When do you meet? How would you get the information out if you wanted to share that?
Okay. Our PTO usually meets the first week of the month. Day varies just depending on schedules. They're all working mothers, so it just kind of has to work around that. But if you ever want to come to a PTO meeting or be involved, feel free to contact me or our secretary, and we'll definitely get you involved with that. We're always looking for more people. Our All-Pro Dads, our next one is March the 13th, I believe. It's 2 Wednesdays from now. It will be at 8 a.m. in the morning in the cafeteria. We'd love to see more dads come out and be involved, or just anybody else looking maybe interested in the program. You're more than welcome to come into our building and see what we've got going on.
And it doesn't have to be a dad. It could be a grandfather.
Right.
It could be an older brother. It could even be grandma.
Grandma, aunt, uncle, anybody's welcome to come in with the kids, absolutely.
So it's just a neat opportunity to build family within the school community, get our parents in the building, have them drop the kids off, and there's always a message of different things parents can do to be active in the life of their kids. And we all know when there's a great partnership between the school and the home, that kid's going to have a much better chance of being successful in life. And again, a very active PTO, and now with the All-Pro Dads and encompassing, pretty much everybody, it's really neat to see how that process has grown. I know we're winding down to about our last minute or so. You are now a feeder school to River Valley Middle School. We also have expanded with our preschool to the point where it looks like we're overcrowding a little bit. And so I know we're looking at that as well, possibly down the road. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your building in closing as we kind of wrap up our telecast in the last 45 seconds?
A few seconds. The main thing about our building is our goal as a building is just to get each kid to realize how important they are and how much we love them and how successful they can be in life. And I think our staff does a great job of implementing that into each kid and just showing them how special they truly are. And that's what we care about.
And in wrapping up, if you cannot see Brandon's passion and care for the kids and students at Addaville, then we've really missed the boat on this broadcast, because you do a tremendous job there. Very proud of Brandon, proud to be a colleague to Brandon, proud to work with him each day. I want to thank him for the opportunity to join me on our broadcast today. This is Jude Meyers, Superintendent of Gallia County Local Schools, thanking you for joining us. Have a great day.